But first, it's one of the best pieces of public land in South Australia. So why are we giving this space to a billionaire? Festival Plaza behind Parliament House is gazetted parklands. But soon this open space with its artwork will make way for a high-rise office tower. And what's worse, it's being given away. But why and who is getting this gift at taxpayers' expense? Here's Hendrik Gout.
It's one of the worst ideas ever conceived of in Adelaide.
I'm yet to meet a captain of industry who donates money to politicians because they just love democracy.
The plan appears to go like this: bury Parliament House behind a skyscraper and hand over the best bit of real estate in the city to a man who already has $1 billion.
I'm just amazed. Can you imagine that in London they would build a food court next to Westminster Abbey just behind Parliament House? I mean, it's ludicrous.
Behind the idea, this mega-rich mystery man, Lang Walker. In 1 year, he made $8 million a week. In 2000, the Walker Corporation developed Hope Island Resort on the Gold Coast, a lazy $650 million. Then there was the Rhodes Waterside, the largest development of its kind in Australia. Woolloomooloo Wharf, $300 million. Sydney, and amongst almost 20 projects currently on the go, Collins Square in Melbourne, an entire city block worth $2 billion.
We're building a city within a city. We know that this is going to be a game changer for this end of town.
And soon, Mr. Walker will add the Adelaide Festival Plaza, gazetted as public parklands, to his list.
This is an astounding idea. They're just going to give away this piece of public land. Essentially, it doesn't cost the developer anything.
So, who exactly is the almost secretive Lang Walker, the billionaire who could almost be judged by his toys? In his fleet of yachts is a super sloop Kokomo. This is it, cruising the Caribbean.
There's a place called Kokomo.
Mr. Walker specified, to quote, a high degree of comfort and detailing and large social spaces because I love to entertain. But should Mr. Walker get seasick, he can step aboard his Bombardier Global Express, $65 million, transcontinental, more than 900 kilometres an hour. The world, it would seem, is Mr. Walker's oyster, and he's about to shuck Adelaide.
It's not just the family silver, it's the family gold.
Damien Mugavin is an urban designer of note. He worked with the firm which designed the signature footbridge. He's taught urban design in Seoul and Singapore. He thinks it's nuts.
This Parliament House here represents our state democracy. And then we want to build a tatty little food court right across the front facade of Parliament House.
How could this happen? Aren't the parklands protected by zoning laws? Well, here's a floodplain way north of Adelaide. 4 years ago, Labor changed its zoning by ministerial fiat, and now the same Walker Corporation can build 30,000 homes here.
The Walker Corporation has all the government approvals it needs to start building the first 600 homes. It can start construction of stage 1 at any time.
Here's Mount Barker. In 2010, Planning Minister Paul Holloway stood in Parliament and said a consortium of developers he specifically named Walker Corporation had asked government to change the zoning so they could build suburbs on farmland. And change the zoning, government did.
This company is deeply enmeshed in the Mount Barker fiasco. Indeed, John Rao has publicly said he certainly wouldn't do it the same way again.
Before the 2010 election, State Infrastructure Minister Patrick Conlon made a trip to Sydney Harbour, where he was a guest on the Lang Walker yacht Kokomo. Before the 2010 election, State Treasurer Kevin Foley made a trip to Sydney Harbour, where he was a guest on Kokomart. The Walker hospitality, remember that high degree of comfort and large social spaces, would have remained a private affair had it not been exposed by an Adelaide investigative journalist.
I want to ask about political donations. Walker Corporation is one of the largest political donors in Australia.
This is Victoria's Parliament, a 2007 committee investigating private developments on public land had before it Mr. Jay Hughes, the managing director of Walker Corp, and it quizzed him on Walker's political donations.
Is your question, why do we give them?
Why do you give them? Yes. You said you do not get favours or anything like that, so why spend all that money?
We think it's a responsible thing to do.
How is it responsible?
All parties require financing to be able to put their best foot forward.
Greens MP Mark Parnell would like to put his best foot forward, but Lang Walker hasn't given him a leg up.
Well, I guess I've never been on Lang Walker's yacht. I haven't been invited, and I don't expect I will be now.
No donations have come his way from Walker Corporation, but he has had correspondence from the firm. Just as Parnell was about to get information on the plaza development under FOI, he was told by the company it would fight him in court.
A process that gives exclusive development rights to a single company, and a company that's a big donor to the Labor Party as well, I think leaves a lot of questions unanswered.
There was a suggestion that 4 years before this contract, you had made a donation to the Labor Party.
We've been making donations to both parties for many years. I'm not sure of the actual amount.
Nationally, in 2003-04, the second largest corporate donor to the ALP. The next year, the largest single corporate donor, hundreds of thousands, and donations to the Liberals as well.
What it gets you at best is access to be able to put your case. Doesn't get you any favours.
Is that not a favour then? If some people are getting access and some are not, it's not a favour to get access?
No, I don't think so.
In South Australia, I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that developers give money to political parties because they love democracy. That's not how it works.
When public land is involved, it is reasonable to expect transparency in the contract process. When it seems that there was no open public tender and the decision to appoint Walker Corporation was announced after the fact, it is not surprising that the public may seek reassurance and wonder whether or not we've got the best deal for our money. The problem for government is the perceptions that may arise in these sorts of situations.
One can only wonder why that corporation is getting such special and exceptional treatment from the state government, the state Labor Party.
The deal gives Walker exclusive right to build a 24-storey office complex that will make it comparable to Adelaide's second tallest skyscraper, roughly equal in height to the Intercontinental here on the right. Slick public relations videos show people milling in the plaza, but the building itself is disguised as a haze.
Indeed, the diagrams show just a shape, a transparent shape. We have no idea who the architect is. We have no idea what the fenestration or anything like that would be. And indeed, I heard the Premier, I thought he was joking. He was saying that the Undercroft area of that office building counts as public space.
As well as the skyscraper and a separate two-level food court and stores, there'll be a 1,560-space car park, the biggest in Adelaide, twice the size of the Rundle Street Pulteney Street monster. This is Damien Muggavan's reading of the plans.
The City of Adelaide has 40,000 car spaces. It's got more than Sydney or Melbourne, so it's an amazing thing. It will extend right around the eastern side of the festival centre, almost as far as the Elder Rotunda.
But this will mean that our frontage from King William Street will be a car park.
Yes.
Planning and Development Minister John Rao, who said he had no time to be interviewed by Today Tonight, set up the government's special Riverbank Authority, at least giving the impression of impartiality. It met for the first time more than a year after being announced, and it gets together once every 4 weeks. Rao's office could not tell us if it had an office, a budget or a permanent staff. But if you don't like the Walker plan, here's what you can do about it. Nothing.
Once the plans have been accepted by the government, they can be approved without having to go to Parliament and without any ability for the public to challenge or question the proposals.
And here's the real kicker. Not only is the government making tens of millions of dollars of public land available to Walker as exclusive developer, it's also chucking in at least $180 million of our money on the Festival Plaza project.
The government really need to explain why they can find $180 million to contribute to this project.
And in a separate but related development, it's also allowing the foreign-owned casino to build a hotel on public land behind the Adelaide railway station.
I'm not sure that the public purse isn't subsidising a private development on our parklands.
Do you think it is in some way significant that Lang Walker's office tower will be overlooking Parliament House?
Well, it's almost like what would you say, a symbolic gesture that Lang Walker is running the state. He'll be able to go up onto the 24th floor and look down on his friends in the State Parliament House.